Motion to approve the previous minutes. Matt, second by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On the agenda is action items. Thank you, Sheriff and Under Sheriff, for coming here. I know you have an interest in EMS. The first thing we're going to talk about is I am responding. We did get the dollars necessary through finance, and I just want to bring everybody up to date on I am responding. You all got a copy of this, I'm sure, and Brian, would you just give us a little fill-in on what happened in the city? And
Yeah, we've as you know, we've been looking at the I am responding. Chief Schrammel took it upon himself to be proactive and ask the company for their 60-day free trial. And by doing that, he was able to upload and create a lot of the stuff necessary for his department. And it kind of surprised us a little bit. We weren't aware they had the structure fire down on First Avenue, and the dispatcher called Jamie and told him after they had gone recall and told him he had X number of guys going to the station, whatever. He had only given it out to a few of his guys, but they used it, and the system worked as it's supposed to. Popped up on the screen in the dispatch center. The dispatcher was able to tell him what he was getting from his recall. And that's the whole idea of this system, is to let the people in the field know if there is something they need to know, to let them know that. And that's the whole deal there. So we do have the final price from the vendor and the subscription agreement. The way it's laid out right now, because when we initially did this through committee, you can pay for it up to 3 years in advance, which gives you a discount, but our initial statement that we went through in our committee was only for 1 year. So the way I have asked them to write this, we'll be doing the first year, will be done as a single year, even though they are going to give me the 3-year price. And then next summer, at this time when we start doing our budget for 2018, at that point in time, we'll be able to put the dollars in correctly. At that time, my suggestion would be to get the 3-year contract, even though you only have to pay it annually. You don't have to pay all the money up front. But that would be my suggestion. For right now, I didn't want to get into a 3-year contract right now until we have it under our belt and make sure it's what we want.
And what's the total number?
Right now, you're looking at $19,200.
Okay, it was important that I just wanted to run that by the committee so that we have the support of the board on our Wednesday meeting.
Quick question, Sean, did you get a chance to go up to Clinton? Have you guys done that or no?
Supervisor Jefferson and I will be going up to next week now.
Okay.
Glens Falls Chief, any comments?
No, actually, as far as the fire side of it, that's what we had experience with in the short time we've had it installed. As far as the EMS side of it, if it's across the board by all the agencies involved in the EMS and the county, it's going to have value. If you have a lot of agencies that bow out and decide not to use it, value will be limited. If you're tracking the available EMS ambulances that are available countywide, it has huge value for the dispatchers. The dispatchers can make decisions much better on who to send, and whether they're BLS or ALS equipped. If they do not participate, then that will be an issue. So it's all about the participation in the system. It's just, and I kind of allude to it, it's the fact that just like my members, if I have limited participation for my members for the recall purposes, it's not going to do me much good. But if I have wide participation, it comes to great value. So it's going to follow suit with the EMS the same way.
Yes, Sheriff?
My question is, so Sean is going up with Larry to look at this. They've already tried it, right? And it seems to work good. The $19,000 that we spend, we put it into the communication center, 911 center. What I'm hearing from the chief is it's only going to be 100% good if all the EMS and fire departments use it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely correct.
All right. So I guess my question is, how how do we get them to use it? What sort of, you can't force them, but how do you get them? Do they have to spend money to get them? So it's, once the county puts it in, it's a free thing for them to do.
That's correct.
That was the whole idea, Sheriff, of doing it countywide.
Why wouldn't they do it?
I don't know, but I did it, I took it by myself to get this evaluation, just so I could inform the people on this committee and the people on the board that the value it had been sick. And it does have value. And it does have, I believe it has value across the whole system of EMS, but it has to be utilized across the board.
Yes?
I only see one challenge. We don't have cell service, and our 250 square miles only basically in North Creek and a little bit of 4 of our fire departments that are outlined. There's no cell service in their area. I don't know, other agencies struggle with the same problem. So.
But there is value if you do an internet in that base, and you can still put what you have for the day as far as ambulance rigging and as far as you have ALS, BLS. So even though there's no cell service in certain areas, there is value in the system if the stuff is logged on a daily basis. So if we know that there's an ALS ambulance in this area from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but none from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., that becomes a great value to the dispatchers, because now they know what they have to do with the resources. They know what resources are there. If they don't know the resources, they can't do that. So even though it may not have a value with an individual agency being able to have their staff call in because they lack cell coverage, it has a value to the dispatch center. And I'm maybe speaking out of turn because I don't work for the dispatch center, but I believe it has a value to the dispatch center to allocate resources properly. And the sheriff may be able to answer that.
Yeah, I agree with that, but again, I want to understand that, because I'm not a techie kind of guy. He's saying that they don't have cell service, but they don't have to have cell service. You can put it into an internet-based system.
They
Is that
put
correct?
the base information, yes. Like I do all the stuff through internet-based. The only thing that cell service is for is the iron responding part, which is the physical people putting in there responding to a call. But all the other information as far as staffing the department, staffing equipment, I put that in internet.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. It's just, I was thinking more along the lines of, if a second, third call comes out, I think for any of my members to say, I'm responding, I didn't know how it would work with dispatch as well. I mean, it's not any different for us saying, well, I have a crew en route to the station, they still have to continue the page as it works now.
If they check en route from home, there is a landline option as well. Obviously they may be in their vehicle, that's not going to help, but, you could also, if you know that you have a volunteer crew on that's going to be responding from home that day, you can log that, at the start of the day or whatever, so. But there is a landline option as well.
Rachel, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. The chief brings up a good point, and I think that as a board, historically, we're very good at getting reports or having studies done and spending a lot of money and not necessarily following those recommendations. So what I want to know before we spend this $19,200, do we have a commitment from our EMS partners that they are going to use this so it is of value and it's not a $19,000 investment for a very small value, as the chief was pointing out?
Yeah,
And Brian, I guess.
That was my thought as well. But
Yeah.
I'm asking, how do you do that?
Right. Well, before we spend money, I guess, Brian, you would know that answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, the discussions that we've had, and again, this stems way back to when we were talking about how can we help EMS in the county. When this suggestion was brought up, that question was raised. And I'll tell you point blank, we looked around the room and said to the supervisors that need help, will you tell your squad to do this? Now, we don't like to use that terminology, we don't tell them what to do, but the bottom line is they work for the town, they work for you, you pay them. At that point in time, I don't know of any reason, we've looked at the whole deal with where can we make phone calls. I know there's not cellular service everywhere, but the bottom line is if every organization will use it to the best of their ability, as we move along and cell service increases and all that stuff, then it's going to happen. I know we have fire companies who don't have internet in their firehouse.
Well,
I know
Brian,
that.
I understand that part, but just to get back to my main question, have you done a survey or confirmed with all of these squads that they're committed to trying this for the 1-year period, or have you surveyed the supervisors to get maybe they've had direct contact, but I would think, given your office and your role in this, that perhaps there's a way to take an informal poll to say, you know, a certain number or high percentage are going to do this to make the return on our investment realistic.
I understand what you're asking, Supervisor Sieber. The problem I have is, you're asking me to do something before we even have presented this to the organizations. This has been driven by the people in this room, that you wanted me to get this done. We have not presented this to EMS, fire, anybody. They don't even know about this other than what they've read in the paper.
Well, I guess just then my concern is what I voiced a few meetings ago, was that this is a big amount of money to spend on something you aren't sure if everybody's going to use it or not.
Jim?
I don't understand the internet thing. Does it, if you have the hook, if you're already attached to the internet, like I have, you know, cable, internet, does it automatically come up? Yeah,
It's a cloud-based system, so all the information is on the cloud, so it's the access internet-based, mobile-based, so that's how it exists.
Well,
Kind of like software, pretty much all the software is going now. This system is cloud-based, so it can be accessed from anywhere at any time.
does Johnsburg have a modem, you know, the old dial-up thing, or do you have, what kind of internet?
Unfortunately, we're still on copper, there's no, high speed.
No.
But, no, we have internet, and in a lot of areas, I have cell service, but only AT&T. In Jonesburg, there's no Verizon. We move over to Minerva, it's Verizon only, no AT&T. But, I don't totally understand the system either. I mean, we'd love to do it and help with it, and I think what the chief was saying is that in the morning, if you upload your information from wherever, that says, this is my availability today. I mean, for us, it's like the same every day, we pretty much know, but I'm sure other agencies have a challenge. So that morning upload of, this is what I have, could be helpful in many respects. So I don't know how it would impact communications as a whole different thing, because just knowing somebody's available and actually having them responding is two different things.
Matt Simpson?
So I see a challenge in that.
Thank you. To go back to Supervisor Sieber's question, the town supervisors, the towns actually have a contract with with our, like North Warren, Chester and Horlicon, so we can include that in our contract. I have received a verbal from them that they will do it.
I'm just
so
talking about town.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, that every town that has, they can contractually put that in there.
Matt?
Yeah, just following up on those 2 points, when will this be presented to the agencies, and how is this going to be presented to them? Is it just going to be through an email, or are you going to invite everybody?
No, we're going to bring it to the EMS Advisory Board and the Fire Advisory Board to start with.
Okay, and before we order it?
I'd have to look at the dates. I'm not quite sure. The dates can be whenever you want. I mean, we can do the startup on this whenever you want. Like I say, this has gone very quickly, and, you know, we have not had a chance to... I don't want to go out and do the presentation to the squads and the fire departments. The company that wants to put this in, that is going to be our contractor, they have someone that will come out and discuss all the points, what can it do, what are the good points, what are the bad points. We have not had time to put that together, and I don't want to go out and present this and say something that's incorrect.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Mickey?
I'd like to see a timeline.
Yes, we did discuss it at the EMS Advisory Board. Not all the captains were there, but we did discuss it. Some said that they would choose, some are already using it right now. A couple said they didn't know if it would be really beneficial for them, but we did discuss at the EMS Advisory Board. It's just not all the captains were present.
These are questions that are coming up that, don't forget, the last meeting, we pushed this to the finance passed this, so, you know, it's good that we're having this discussion, but we should have had this discussion before we went to finance. All right.
Well, I'm in agreement with Rachel on this, you know, I can't see putting $20,000 into the 911 center, and the 911 center is looking at it, and nothing's coming through. So I think you're right, you gotta start walking before you run, and everybody's gotta sign on to this. I don't think anybody can be out of it. So I think it's important that each town supervisor does what Matt did. They control it. If you're gonna get money from us, this is imperative that you use it. And I think that has to be done before we actually put it in. I agree, 100%.
Matt?
Why don't we have all the squad, or representative from each squad, come to our meeting before we decide and get a verbal from them, because we're mid-contract. It's on the public, in the public record. We already decided to spend the money, but we can still stop the process and require participation.
Yeah,
We're not
well,
committed to it.
I'm not, one of the things about having the squads come to our meeting is, we meet during the daytime. A lot of these people have their regular full-time jobs, so maybe it's up to Brian to call those meetings at the convenience of fire and EMS. Chief, you had a question?
A question, from a public safety standpoint, this has huge value, and the thing is, that this is the issue. Even if every squad doesn't use it, my ambulances get called out multiple times on mutual aid calls a day. A lot of those times, they're returned to the station, okay? So we get halfway to a place in Queensbury and they're returned to the station. The concern I have is, that's putting extra vehicles in emergency mode on the road, causing more issues with traffic, accidents, and all those other things that can be eliminated by implementation of the software. So, the limited cost you're talking, and every squad participating, if the squads aren't participating, shame on them. Because the truth of the matter is, from a management standpoint, if my organization, the City Fire Department, to have this is invaluable just in protecting my people and drivers, and a lot of those times, those calls probably could be circumvented and not come to my agency, because the dispatchers are going to know what they have for resources available at that current time. So maybe if they have a resource available, if we bring my people, won't even be called. That's kind of the value I'm looking for. For my agency to respond to these calls, we return to the station after they're 3 or 4 minutes into a call, responding in emergency mode. That creates a hazard for my people. That creates a poor allocation of resources. So the value in this system, even if it's used by 50% of agencies, still has huge value.
Okay, so Chief, what I hear you saying is, if you build it, they will come. Even if nobody else came, if we put it in, it's going to help you immensely right now.
Us in Queensbury, I can see, and the only reason I'm saying Queensbury is I work in Queensbury quite often, mutual aid wise, them coming in and us going out. Just those two, the town and the city, it's just right there.
Okay.
So I know we're talking about everybody being involved in everybody doing it. Everybody's just helping enough to crack.
Right.
But I think it's one of those things that if everybody starts to see the value in it, they will come online. So that's my opinion, is if you implement it, people are going to see the value, they're going to come online. And whether it's Johnsburg doesn't want to drive 20 miles outside the district, if the resources are available that are close. So it's not only affecting me, it affects Johnsburg, it affects North Warren. Everybody has the same problems in EMS. That's the whole reason this conversation started. This is a cheap method to get rid of some of those problems.
Ms. Bramer?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that this was a recommendation in the report, and that we already determined that this was going to be valuable, and that the town supervisors would have to work with their agencies and get them on board. This is a process that we're going to have to go forward with, but I don't think we should be waiting on buying the thing. We should make sure we buy it, get the value we can, and add value as more people join on, and get the provider to come and train the agencies on it. The sooner we do that, the better chance we have of getting value right away.
Yes, Brian?
Thank you, Supervisor. The important thing to remember, this system already exists. It's already in the radio room. They're already using it. There's probably 6 or 8 agencies in the county right now that are paying for it themselves. It's not that this is brand new. The system exists. We just want to get all the agencies to use the system to their best ability so that we can help make a more efficient system.
And it's free. Free to the town.
That was the whole idea of bringing this up.
It's not free to
That's
the
why-
county taxpayers.
It's why other counties do it, is if you have a little department that couldn't no way ever afford this on their own, yet we want to be able to have them in the system, we do this as a countywide project, everybody buys in, and we use it to the best of our ability. The people that are already paid for it, the people that are already paid ahead, they will, the day that this starts, they will receive a prorated refund. So.
Jim?
Yeah, the system is free for 60 or 90 days. All the EMS, all the companies can start doing it today, and we could either wait or do it. I would act on it today to get the,
Well, we have already acted on it. What I was at, why
I mean, we could do the RFP or whatever we're gonna do, and then,
Little value if not everybody joins.
yes,
I almost think we gotta look at two different things. One is the purchase of the system and then the implementation of it. And I think there's different things that are gonna have to be looked at, policy-wise. I know the communication center has a policy manual or a handbook. And some of those finer details, I think, working with the fire advisory board or EMS advisory board, that makes sense, and that's gonna have to happen. There's already, this is a perfect, actually, this week, American Week, is a perfect example of how busy things can get. And, the dispatch center, knowing or not knowing who has crews, or BLS crews, or ALS crews. A good example is, ALS agency that's dispatched to an ALS call, but they have a BLS crew today. And certainly there are some issues with people not reporting that. They'll check en route, and then 10 or 15 minutes later they'll call for ALS. Those delays can be put to the wayside with this, but I don't think we're going to have as many. I think there's one or two agencies that might struggle with that to begin with, but I think those can be addressed. The other thing is there's 6 EMS agencies that are represented in the room today. I know Chief Trammell's already spoke out, Steve Emerson's here from Warrensburg, Scott from Luzerne, Kevin spoke from Johnsburg, we have Eric from Empire, Nikki, Lake George. So I think there's certainly not all the representatives are here, but there's no downside to it. And there's other tools and things that, it's not just the reporting of crews and checking in with the calls, there's other tools and things that they can use. There really is no downside. And on the fire side, I listened to a fire call in Queensbury Central yesterday, and they requested one engine from Westland Falls, and they kept toning. It was daytime, everybody's working, but they kept toning and toning and toning. Dispatch center really had no idea if anybody was responding to the station to get the truck or not. They just kept toning. So it's a guessing game. So on both sides, there's no downside to this. It's a win-win, and I think I don't see why people wouldn't use it.
well, this was the discussion that we had in the previous meeting. We suggested we bring it to Finance. Finance Committee approved it. So all I'm saying is that if you have some doubts, you're going to get a chance to vote on this at a full board meeting. Matt?
Yeah, I just had, and maybe I'm getting too much into the details there, but I don't want to just make any assumptions. So, where exactly is this? Who's going to be administering this program? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be 911 dispatch? Who's going to
What
be
happens is that-
collecting the data and storing the data and analyzing the data? Who's going to be overseeing this program?
This is all done by the company. I Am Responding will reach out to each organization. They have a form, a survey, what you want to call it, or a questionnaire, where they ask for all the information that's necessary for them to set it up.
Okay.
Once that's done, they will meet with those agencies. If they have something specific, Jamie, you had some things that were specific to a career department as compared to a volunteer organization, and he works with the person that designs and builds the system. So there's a profile that's built for each organization. Once that's put into the system in the cloud, at that point in time, there's nothing on my end to do. The only thing that we added to the system, which they did for free, is I also said, well, my office would like to be able to utilize this as well. So when my people are out of town, or we have a response, we don't know where everybody is. Also the Marine Rescue Team, they're through that in for free.
Okay.
So when there's a Marine Rescue call, these guys are coming from all over the place. We have no idea what we're getting. Some of them come on the radio, some of them don't. That adds a lot of radio traffic. So, these guys have been very, very cooperative, and they, Jamie, how hard was it for you to get set up?
I've made multiple changes, because when you start it, of course, you have no idea, they send you a form, you have no idea what category you can use, so you kind of, I've changed things.
But you've been able to...
I've made 2 changes already. The changes, I usually request a change in the afternoon, and usually before I leave work, the changes are made.
But they've been...
Most of the stuff you can change yourself. Most of it is user integrated, so other people can change it.
But they've been cooperative, Jamie? I mean,
Yeah, and they're very responsive. I send an email with the changes I need. Like I said, it's 3 hours.
Support system behind it, but
I haven't had an issue, and like I said, most of it is user integrated changes. So in other words, most of it I can change myself. There's 2 fields, 2 kinds of categories that you can't. You can change yourself, and have to be changed by them. And I made errors when I sent the sheets, because of course I didn't know what they really meant or how they're utilized. And being a career department, it's a little different, so they're having a difficult contact. So, but they've done career departments too, so they integrated some stuff. So actually, it worked out pretty well for us.
And there is a training program. This isn't, we're not going to throw this in and go from there, but there is a training program where they would go out and go hands-on with the fire and EMS people to help them, understand how to operate it. There's a lot of options in it that we are not using. They're available to us. There's no extra charge.
So this is going to be in terms of the money part, it's coming out of your budget, and it's going to be administered by the company that has created...
We buy the system.
Right.
And at that point in time, they do what we ask them to do.
I certainly think there's probably going to be, I think what you're alluding to is there probably going to be things that have to contacts. OES works closely with the Sheriff's Department Communications Center, so if they see an issue on their end of the Sheriff's Office or what have you, I'm sure the two will work together to
Question?
contacts with the company. Two members of the board for EMS. We used it for a year, a little over a year. It worked out excellent for us. The only reason we're not using it is because of the cost. But other than that, it worked out very well.
All right, well, we've had the discussion. It will be on the agenda for the meeting on Wednesday night. Next on the agenda is a discussion on the EMS, the RFP. There's a couple of things that I need to get squared away so everybody is on the same page. We do not, as a county, have a CON. We do not have that. That is something that can only be gotten when we have a plan. We don't have a plan yet. And the other question that I have is, we talked about doing it in a county and what it would cost. We have a potential, the city and maybe Empire, that want to be involved in it. But I have to tell you, truthfully, nobody has told me that Queensbury is out. Do we know that Queensbury doesn't want to be part of this system? We need to get that answer, Brian. I need to know. I mean, we've said that Queensbury is comfortable and not happy, and happy with what they're doing, but I need to know whether they would be part of this system or not. Because without Queensbury and or Glens Falls, but specifically Queensbury, if we're talking $1 million, it's not going to work because the small towns can't afford it. So,
My answer to that, Supervisor, is quite simple. We've got the cart ahead of the horse again.
Right.
What we're doing here is we've been asked to get an additional suggestions and pricing from the City of Glens Falls and Empire. That was as a result of our last meeting. Until we have that information, and we as a group decide what we think we want to do, how can I ask the town and the city if they want to be in if we don't know what it is? There may be pieces of this, they could say no, and we could stop this whole process now, yet there was a part of that program that would have worked for the up counties. I don't think we should demand a yes or no at this point. This system is scalable. In other words, you don't have to spend $1 million the first year. Maybe you only put on one person or 4 people. You don't have to put on all 10. It bothers me that we keep throwing this $1 million number out there. This is scalable. Use it or not use it. We haven't done the numbers yet. If we don't know how we want to operate it, how can we do that? We need to get the answers back from these gentlemen, which is what you requested us to do.
Right?
We'll get that back from them, and then we're gonna start over and figuring out what's it gonna cost and how it's gonna operate. Once we do that, we can say to Glens Falls and the Queensbury Town Board, whoever it is, whether or not you wanna participate or not.
Okay, the one question that I would have is that once you get those numbers, you still need to know whether Queensbury and Glens Falls or just Queensbury is going to be involved in it. Simply because you need that kind of dollars to make it work.
We haven't determined that yet, Ron. We haven't determined yet that the county is gonna pay for this system. That hasn't been determined yet. Everybody is working on the assumption that we're adding $1 million to the county budget. That's not necessarily the case. There are a number of ways that this can be done. And I really wish that you would let us have a chance to put it together before we demand a yes or no from anybody. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I looked through the RFP draft language, and I was kind of taken aback because I thought that it was more about staffing and not necessarily fly cars. Can Mickey just give us an overview of what your idea was?
Because our original thought was to start with ALS because a lot of areas we lacked in ALS. That was the 2 paramedic fly car system. So we wanted to have something that was based off of what we proposed, which would be the 2 paramedic. And then we also thought that, in addition to that either an ambulance and a fly car would also work, or an ambulance staff with the 2 paramedics.
Are you saying? Can I just?
Yeah.
Are you saying that it can't just be a person? It's got to be a vehicle too, either an ambulance or some sort of car.
Oh, yeah.
So okay. They have to get there. I mean, that's the whole point, I guess. Is to
Well,
get-
yeah, I mean,
And the
you,
personnel, they have to be able to go to.
But the idea is that they would tell us how much it'll cost for them to have somebody on staff. You're asking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're giving these various options. So they'll give us costs for each of those various options, and then we can figure out.
Right, and we plan on sending this to all the agencies, so not just Glens Falls and Empire, but any agency in the county that wants to come up with a proposal.
In order to compare apples and apples to what our original presentation was, we have to ask the same questions.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. I just didn't.
Rachel?
Mr. Chairman, could you please clarify for me? I could have sworn back in December or November, we approved as a committee an application for a CON. And I know that because I opposed it because it was brought up with 5 minutes notice. So you just made it clear we do not have a CON, but we did in fact apply for a CON.
No.
Well, why was that approved at committee if it didn't happen? Maybe everyone else in the room knows it didn't happen, but I don't.
Yes.
For a municipal CON, the municipal board has to pass a resolution for us to get a CON. For us to actually apply to the state, we have to have a plan to implement. If we apply for the CON with no plan, to get an ambulance CON, we have to be contracted with it. We have to have an ambulance for them to inspect and do all that stuff, none of which we have right now. The point of getting the resolution passed was because some agencies might be collapsing at that moment, was to be able to act quickly on that instead of having to wait months for the board to pass that resolution. If we apply for the CON right now without that and we don't have a plan for a year, it really doesn't show that we need it.
I understand your point. My concern is that it was pushed through this committee, again with little notice, to get it through, and it's on hold, is what you're saying? We approved it as a committee, and...
It's on hold, and that's been reported to this board several times.
That the CON is on hold.
Yes.
We're trying to make a plan to get it done.
I've asked that question several times.
I'm sorry, I guess maybe I try to get to as many as I can to committee meetings, but I'm pleasantly surprised too that Supervisor Brock doesn't recall that either. But what, do we rescind the resolution then? I mean, if there was no need for it.
No, why?
It just stays there? And when, okay.
When we get a plan, then we'll be able to
we
enact
did a
it.
resolution to apply, but we didn't act on it, so we...
Simply because we needed a plan, and we didn't have the plan.
Okay, good enough.
Right, Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to suggest we continue to look at an alternative plan, but also I need time with my agency. there's resources that are just sitting there in some of these agencies. We have 2 rescue squads equipped. I think they're fully equipped, right? I mean, you would know.
The ambulances, you mean?
Yeah, those 3 ambulances, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 3 ambulances, we're only getting 1 out. So we have 2 ambulances there that probably cost somebody an awful lot of money. And it's, you know, taxpayers are probably the predominant portion of that. But I think that what I'm working with our agency is to find out what it actually costs, how many more people it would take, where the funds would come from. I think that we may be able to, while we're looking at this plan, also look at an alternative, which is the town of Horrick and the town of Chester, figure out exactly, because that's been a difficult thing to attain, exactly what the shortage is in the agency or the deficiency and how much it's going to take to solve that problem.
Well, Matt, you've taken the words out of my mouth. I mean, I thought as an alternative, one of them is that there ought to be some teamwork, if you will, among some of the smaller towns that, you know, can't afford to do it on their own, but maybe combined would. And as you point out, there are an abundance of ambulances. I think, Brian, what did you say, we had 14?
26 ambulances.
There's 26 in the county.
Right.
I would move ahead with this and then you'll...
28 ambulances.
All right.
No, we need staffing. We need staffing. It's just
Matt?
trying.
I'm actually glad that you mentioned that point, because during the course of the week so far, I've been thinking, I'm wondering if we can just press pause on this whole plan and really just take our time developing it and utilize the I Am Responding program, collect as much data as we can over as long a period as we can to see, all right, we can find out really where those holes are, isolate where the problems are throughout the county, and then, with your suggestion, Supervisor Simpson, why can't the agencies if there are 2 or 3 agencies where there is a hole, why can't they work together and find out a plan amongst themselves? That way, you know, we're doing a really thorough due diligence before we take on a mega county operation.
Well, we're not at the stage where we're going to take on a mega county, but what we hopefully will find out this morning is at least some alternative cost via the city and or Empire, and just to give us some things to think about. So, is the Empire ready to talk about the RFP?
Well, you gotta put out the RFP.
Oh, no, not today.
You gotta put out an RFP.
Or
No, are you ready to look at the RFP and check that out and see what you can come up with?
Oh, yes, we've been waiting.
Gotta put it out.
okay. So, yes.
Just to your point real quick, I think all along we've hoped that individual towns and agencies would take a hard look at themselves. And that's what we've been talking about forever.
Absolutely.
The fact that there are multiple issues, whether it's coverage issues, staffing issues, a huge surplus of equipment that maybe we do or don't need. Each individual agency, with the exception of Empire, holds operating authority for their individual town. There's certain things, there's collaborations and
You haven't even put it out, Ron. You gotta put it out.
consolidation that certainly individual towns and agencies can do. Historically, they're okay with the status quo. They just keep going day after day, struggling. And the other part of this is, please do not forget that we have to take care of the providers at some point. These people are working insane hours. So that's what we're trying to look at, especially starting with the ALS end of things. When you have medics who are working 80, 90 hours a week, in multiple different places trying to make a living, and I know they signed up for it, but that doesn't make it right. And so can we be more efficient to consolidate some of that ALS as well? But certainly, I don't think there's certainly any harm in getting numbers from Glens Falls, Empire, Zurn, or whoever wants to give a proposal. But at the same time, these are the things that we've been encouraging, and it hasn't taken place. So maybe if that's pushed from the supervisor's end, but that's why we're trying to be proactive in doing something to help the system, because there's a lot of people complaining.
And yet, to the other part of your statement there, there's also statewide regulations that I just can't operate. I can't go up to
North Warren as a Warrensburg agency and operate up there freely. That's against Medicare and Medicaid law. I could get sued like crazy. I would lose everything we had. So as far as consolidation, that's a time-consuming process as far as putting things together. And so that's nothing that's going to happen within the next 6 months, just because there's no way to put it together that fast. The reason that you voted to allow them to do CON is so when they were ready, they could do it. So, but you had to have a full board resolution to allow them to do it when they were ready. That's why the resolution was done months ago. And remember too, that it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an increase in tax dollars. There is the option for the county to hold operating authority and contract with existing agencies, so that we can try to get several agencies under one umbrella to cut down costs and things that way.
Matt? Matt, you.
That's exactly right, and I think it's important to have these costs analyzed along with the work that Craig, Supervisor Leggett, and I are working on with North Warren, because North Warren's kind of a hub. It's in the center of everything. I could almost envision with our department and our resources there that are being utilized, being able to staff that and fill that void. But like I said, it takes a lot of I need a basis to evaluate the numbers at.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I want to move forward too. I know that collecting data is important and that we should do that while we're using, getting up and running with the I Am Responding. But the point about our providers and them being completely overworked, I mean, the ambulance driver who fell asleep at the wheel in Duanesburg has weighed on me, and thinking, there could be another incident like that here in Warren County, because we are working our people to extreme levels. So I would like to see us move forward with at least sending the RFP. It doesn't mean we have to do anything like immediately once we get our information, the responses back. So I'd like to move that.
You're making that as a motion?
I'm making that.
I'll second it. We got something done. Or at least...
The motion is...
The motion.
What is the motion?
Motion is...
I'm making a motion that we send out the request as drafted by our EMS office.
Okay, and that's been seconded. Any discussion? Rachel?
I'm certainly not prepared today to be able to vote on that. I agree with Matt McDonald. I think that there are things that need to be researched and talked about, and I know it will pass, that's fine, but it gives me some time to discuss it further.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed. Chief?
Yes, I reviewed the proposal, prior to coming to this meeting with the mayor. That proposal is for a comprehensive EMS, end of story. Whether it's the option of the fly car, the ambulance, or the ambulance. It's a comprehensive EMS system you're putting in place. The city is not the answer to a comprehensive EMS system. I sat with...
Can you speak up a little more,
I
Chief?
sat with Mr. Garrity, the mayor, when we first started this process, and the city thought they could be of assistance in dealing with kind of what the other option we talked about here, which was staffing issues at certain locations, at certain times of the day, to kind of fill those voids. City is not an answer, in my opinion, for a comprehensive plan. You're dealing with pretty much creating a whole other organization, whether would be under the umbrella of the city, and for me to do that would take more than a month to accomplish, because you're dealing with staffing issues and other things that would have to be created. So dealing with a comprehensive system, I guess what I'm saying is the city would not be the answer to that. We probably would not put together a proposal, because we're not going to put the time into coming up with a proposal for a system that I don't think we would be your answer. If you're looking for a comprehensive system like that, maybe Empire will be in a position to do it, or it would have to be run by the county. The issue I have with a comprehensive system is putting people out there without knowing what the call volume is for those people, without knowing the recovery cost, how much of a recovery per ALS calls, how many agencies you're going to have ALS, how many you're not. There's a lot of things that go into figure out when you're dealing with a comprehensive system like that. It's not just North Warren can't provide ALS for 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Can we assist that? That's something that we you know, in the initial stages of this, that's what we talked about, possibly being a solution. Yeah, much smaller scale than we're dealing with now. If you're looking at this RFP as it sits now, I know the city's not going to put a proposal together. I spoke with the mayor. I'm sure Empire probably could come up with a proposal for you, but I believe pretty much, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I would say most of the EMS agencies in the county are going to look at that and say that, you know, come up with a comprehensive proposal like that, something that's probably not going to overcome.
Empire, you have some thoughts?
I mean, certainly, they could come up with a proposal for this. Some of it is a little bit excessive, some of it's not, you know, like the mechanical CPR device, very expensive and hasn't proven efficacy. You know, just but we can certainly come up with a chat.
Okay. Well, I would hope that you would take it back and at least look at that and give us an alternative.
One thing I want to add that's been mentioned, I don't think it's going to end up cutting back on hours like the Waynesburg accident, because I think the chief will tell you, he's got career people, and most of them work other jobs too. You know, and Miss Guy herself works 4 or 5 different jobs. So, you know, it's just something that goes along with the business, and I think hiring career people isn't going to solve it. They'll be in the same situation that I work with professional jobs, and I still work part-time somewhere else. And 4 jobs, 3 jobs, 2 jobs. It's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, yes, Rachel.
I just want to also follow up on what the chief said. We had an opportunity, several of us, to speak with Senator Little last month, and she also voiced the same concerns about the way the city fire and EMS have been developed, and that there was some specific wording in the charter that they could not provide those services under, and I'm paraphrasing, but she had major concerns about the city's and you're kind of alluding to that. But
We wouldn't push it. The thing is that would be a CON issue. The county's getting to that.
okay.
So that issue now becomes a contractual issue, not a
Okay.
CON issue.
Okay.
So-
Maybe that's what she was saying.
So she is correct as far as the CON issue is
Okay.
concerned.
Okay.
But as far as the city moves up the CON, the county,
Okay.
I believe the system that you're proposing, the county's looking at possessing a CON,
Yeah.
contracting out with any garage. So therefore, it eliminates that issue.
Okay.
If we probably were more in violation of that by going to mutual aid, but if we stopped going to mutual aid, that would be a huge burden.
Yeah.
How many mutual aid do you do around here?
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, yeah, Dan?
Just quickly in closing, Ron, I would just like to say, I like what the EMS has done, being proactive, bringing it to the committee to discuss it. There's a lot of difficulties up north with a lot of things as far as labor force, et cetera, and certainly with the tourist industry that we evolve around in the Blue Line, and how development up north of that Blue Line is difficult as it is compared to Queensbury and Glens Falls. The year-round adventures that go on in trying to sustain oneself in the northern regions of our county are difficult financially, and I think it's incumbent on the county to keep an eye on that. Through the CMS, we should view it through the prism of the fact that if we have invasive species that we're concerned about our tourism industry, which we were, and we allocated fundings toward that to keep those lakes pristine, to keep those tourists coming, vis-a-vis Americaid is here this week. They're riding through our regions. There's motorcycle accidents. It inundates EMS, our dispatch, etc. That's incumbent upon us to be involved in that and to fund that, so that we're talking about lives here. And we're trying to bring people here and keep our lakes clean. We also need to attend to those people when they get hurt or have heart attacks or other medical problems. And I think we're getting a good look at that. It's going to cost us some money. We want to do it in the most efficient manner. And I think there's been some good discussions of how we could move forward. But ultimately, I think the county is going to have to fund something in some proportionate way to help those up northern towns survive because of the difficulties of the economies and the Blue Line and the Adirondack Park and all the things that we have studied over the years.
Well, I think it's well said, Dan. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some cost involved in this thing, and that's why we're having, we started with the EMS group putting it together. It was, that number looked like $1 million. We brought the city in, we brought Empire in. We have a guy like Matt Simpson who's trying to coordinate with his neighboring communities. So we'll get there. It's not going to happen overnight, but you're right. There's going to be a cost involved in this thing in order to, as you point out, invasive species was a county issue. This is a county issue too. We're talking about people's lives. Matt?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I agree 157% that, the county does have a responsibility to take care of people that need it. It's about lives, and it's also about the providers. Wholehearily agree, but I also just, where I was going with my suggestion was, I think it'd be valuable, very valuable to all the stakeholders involved that we utilize the data to understand where we need it and then how much we need before, and then use that in developing an RFP rather than developing an RFP without knowing exactly how much and where it needs to go. I just felt like it was a more diligent way of going about it.
I think when we looked at it, it's all those inefficiencies. Somebody just mentioned efficiencies. It was all those inefficiencies that we needed to start somewhere, right? And we feel, and to Eric's point and concern, that it's not going to reduce the number of hours worked. What we're looking at is, not just the ambulances, 20 ambulances down in how many they actually, but the ALS services. Is it realistic? 24/7, 365, regardless of whether it's a tourist town, you're slow or busy, or what have you, to have a paramedic or a critical care tech in every station. It might not be. It might not be. I mean, it's sheer numbers and how much our BLS providers can do and things like that. Not that we want to take a step backwards, but we really need to look at that. So that's what we were working towards. Okay, how do we become more efficient? Do we need every station staffed with a paramedic 24/7? The answer is some, probably, because their call volume stays steady. Others, maybe not so much. And then, just in addition to that, taking care of the providers is, the health insurance, the retirement, and a living wage, so that they don't have to work those insane hours. And on top of that, increasing the number of paramedics through education, which we're also working on. So,
all right.
That was kind of our.
I think we've had a pretty lively discussion, and I'm going to ask the Empire and the chief if after the meeting you just meet with me for a minute.
I mean, I'd just like to make I'll be in comment. Everything, again, but I like what you just said there. And I spoke to Brian a couple of weeks ago. It's a lot for us to put it out on the county, hiring 10 people, places to go, fly cars, constantly year after year. Maybe it might be better that we come up with a number to help all these squads. Every squad gets the same amount of money, then they can get the people they need to take care of their area and still be mutual aid. I mean, I know it would help my squad. So taxpayers like we learn and I'm paying what we're paying now. I mean, we pay up $300,000 a year for the squad.
Something like an allocation of bed tax, right?
Yep. Instead of hiring and buying more cars and more people, we can hire those same people individually to help them X amount, just like you did the invasive species. X amount went to some towns that have problems with their lakes. This way, and I'm the one that speaks about it, is that if you come out with something that the county's going to put in $1 million, $2 million, $3 million every year, well, some of the towns already have squads that are taking taxpayers' money out of those towns to run those squads, and then they're going to be paying county taxes on part of the money that's going. So just my idea is just to come up, everybody gets, I'm going to throw a number out, everybody gets $50,000 or $100,000, including Glens Falls, including Queensbury. This way, every town has their own money to get their squads up and running, and that's my 2 cents.
Are there any other questions, privilege of the floor?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. Supervisor McDonald kind of hit on something that reminded me that this is a typical problem that happens in bigger businesses. There's needs, there's resources, there's utilization of those resources, and how do you best do this? I've been involved with stuff my whole career, professional career. It's a pretty well understood situation in terms of how to address it. And Supervisor McDonald was right. You look at the data, where do you need to be, where do you need the resources, what are the volumes, and then you come up with a proposal in terms of how to address this. Just a suggestion, you might want to look at some consultant to possibly do something like that. I'm not going to offer my ability to do that, even though I could, but it is a typical business problem, and there's approaches to solve that.
All right. Motion to adjourn? Jim, second by Matt, all in favor? Aye.
Not that I would object.